Thank you. That was very informative. Thank you so much. As I was sitting and listening, something occurred to me, and I think it's something we should pay attention to next year. Oftentimes, those of us that come to all of these meetings and that do the work and that are involved in this forget and we use acronyms. I think it's not just you. We've all done it today. So for those at home, ATI, it's been written on the screen, but I don't think any of us have actually said it. ATI is an analytical treatment interruption. And then we said BNAMs, those are broadly neutralizing antibodies. So if there are other things that folks have heard that they don't understand, if you could pop them in the chat. Michael can help answer those, we can help answer those, because I think it's important that we're sure that everybody understands what we're talking about so that the concepts make sense. Now, having said that, who has questions for Kareem? Oh, lots. Okay, let me start over here.
Thank you. This is not actually the question for Dr. Dubes. More as a comment. I think it's related to Dr. Bas also. The whole thing today very exciting. There's a lot of HIV Cure trial going on. A lot in plan. There's a lot of positive, things about HIV Cure, but I live in HIV Cure world. I think pretty more, very specifically narrow, We know all this thing about is, exciting intervention that's coming on. There's a lot of intervention, right? But for people who potential trial participants, they may not know this. They live in their own world. Most of them just, if got infected early, got treatment early, they don't disclose their status. They leave their own world, right? They don't know this information, right? So how we gonna get this information to them? At least if they have this information, they can make more choices and a lot of options available for them. Right now, they know whatever the researcher on that side giving to them. And of course, everybody fighting for their own cohort, for their own target group, for their own community that they focus on, right? But the people outside that they don't know what we are doing, what we are talking about, right? And they have no mechanisms or channel for potential participants to talk to us, right? To ask questions, to know, to learn about the option available, right? Right now, the information here is just circle around in our community. But I don't think, at least in Thailand, this information reach out to potential participant. I think we have to find a way that we can communicate with them. And like Dr. Dubey just said, maybe that question for order to take care of. We're just gonna deal with this study going in front of us right now. But I think many people that this kind of information be very beneficial for them. And the second thing is related to the informed consent process. We know that in the future the HIV trial will be a bit complex. A lot of intervention, kitchen sink approach. Throw everything in there. The AGI will be long. So I think the informed consent process right now, we just depend on the document, right? Or maybe illustration, graphic, video. We have to think more about that. So I think that can explain this complex thing to people that not well informed about HIV or HIV science. And right now, we just say, okay, we expect HIV advocate or CAP member to explain. But you just take okay, leave it to community member to explain it, right? But then no structure support for us, for community member, for CAP member to do it, no resources to do it. Now, right now, we have to do it in our own time, at least. But I hope that we can have a structured way that we can do better communicate with community. Thank you.
Michael, can you hear me from here if I repeat what he said?
Yes, we could hear basically not a lot of it.
Okay, let me.
It was very long too, so we couldn't understand to follow it. I couldn't.
Synopsis. He was basically saying that The second point was that we need, during the informed consent process, there needs to be some structure about how that's going to be done so that the information is accurate, because as we go forward, the cure trials are going to get more and more complicated. There's more layers to it. And so we need to have an understanding of that. And then his first point was that there needs to be, as I understood it, correct me if I'm wrong, that there needs to be a way for information about trials and how trials are going and what's happening, a better way to get it out to the community at large who may not be taking part in these trials.
Yeah.
Right? Is that right?
Yeah, or not in HIV Cure field.
Yeah, so for those who are not in the HIV cure field, to get this information so that they're aware of what's happening, like people who may not really have interest in it, but maybe should know the information. Okay, let me go get another question.
Thank you. So Terry Wilder, Sage, comma, body website. So I'm just thinking about this first question. What does justice informed HIV cure research with HIAs mean to you? I was thinking about like, what does justice mean? Because it's kind of a broad term. And I kind of want to invite us to think about it more intersectionally. Like justice, I think a lot about disability justice, racial justice, gender justice, language justice, and how all of those need to and do intersect. Thinking about kind of what I do during my day job, which is thinking about HIV and aging issues all the time. So how are we making sure people who are 50, 60, 70, 80 years old are going to get to participate in this cure research? And when we think about folks who are aging with HIV, the likelihood of having comorbidities, which then falls under disability justice, how are they going to get there? How are they going to get to engage people who may not be able to see as well anymore? Maybe can't even read the information that we're sending out about these opportunities to participate in cure research. Is it in a language that is their first language? So I kind of just wanted to talk about that from like an intersectional lens and just making sure that we're thinking about justice in all of those different areas. Because I think there's a lot of inherent ableism that happens, across the world, and not thinking about what happens when folks age and when folks have other things going on with their bodies other than HIV that may prevent them from participating in cure research.
That was beautifully said. I wish you had been here to say it exactly so people could have heard you directly. So if anybody wants to ask questions, come to the podium and ask them. People on Zoom can hear you. Terry said that we need to really think about the different kinds of justices beyond that include disability justice, racial justice, language justice, racial justice. And there's a lot of ableism that happens in HIV cure research. I absolutely agree with you. I think we need to really think broad about the concept of justice and what that means in HIV cure research participation, because the term right now is very narrowly defined. Totally agree with you. And that's a conversation for a separate day. And I would love to invite the people who ask questions to come here and ask them to. No, I can't be the problem. I saw him. I think Jim Pickett was next, and Michael DeRoche is after. Okay, Michael, go. Sorry.
Well, this is borderline science and social science, but in these clinical trials where you're testing a very small number of people, kind of like a pilot study to see if there's something that was really actually happening, right? So I'm also on 5374. So I'm literally the member of the only two trials that are US cure, whatever. That's gonna be almost impossible to enroll. And we know it. I mean, in January, we haven't got one person. But the deal is that in that trial, and this is, I'm adamant about this, because it's a pilot study, it should not have a placebo arm, to ask people to do multiple leukapheresis, to have all this stuff, unless you can come up with a placebo that gives you some side effects maybe, But the other thing is, in both of those trials, we're gonna have to do a PK study of these people who are in this interruption to make sure that they're not taking their drugs. So that's what that means is PK is they take some blood and they look to see if there's any tenofovir or integrase inhibitors or any antiretrovirals in there. Because a lot of people are low income, they want the compensation for doing these very complicated trials, which is fairly hefty. But they don't want to be without, so that's a real tough thing to get around. And I don't know if I'm just sort of making something for people, saying something for people to think about it, or if you have any comments on that and where we cross between the science of if they're in this study, they can't take their meds and there's nothing stopping them because they're not in prison.
Yeah, you brought so many issues, Michael, and I don't have all the answers, but the issue of placebo-controlled design is really interesting, and it's gonna be discussed, I think, at the HI meeting in May. Yeah, you brought up, I could not have said it better than you. I don't have all the answers, but you brought up really important questions. And food for thought for everyone. Jim Pickett?
Well, Craig, let me out of work. Why?
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just kidding.
So this is sort of also more on the comment side. I just wanted to point out or highlight some of the things you mentioned about social behavioral research and the frustration. I know I heard about it not always getting into CROI. I would just say it's not just CURE, it's social behavioral research across all the disciplines. CROI has a real, it doesn't respect it overall. Although I think the winds are turning. I've been on the planning committee for the last few years, and actually this last year we just brought on 2 social behavioral scientists onto the planning committee, which is the first. So there's 2 people who actually know the science and can be better reviewers of these sorts of things. So I would say that, and I would say that it would be good if you and your colleagues across all the different disciplines really banded together and keep putting in those abstracts. It is frustrating to be denied when it's really good. An abstract isn't good just because it has 1,000 people in its sample. I mean, as a sample of 7 in your work can be really, really powerful. Everything you read today was really, really powerful, and we need more of that at CROI. I mean, for me, and I know a lot of my colleagues, we believe that this is the most important science. Without understanding all of the science, none of it matters. If we don't understand how it impacts people and how people engage with it. So don't give up, keep pushing, inundate them with abstracts, make them, and do it with all of your colleagues across all the disciplines, because sadly, you all don't get the respect that you deserve. This is the most important science of all of them. They're all important, but this is a little more. Because again, we could have the cabotegravir amazing, it works great. It doesn't mean shit if it's sitting on a shelf, right? It doesn't mean anything if people are afraid of it, don't know how to access it, have feelings about it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I would just say, please, please, please keep pushing. And I'll also give a quick plug. We do a community breakfast club series every morning during CROI. And they're open to everybody, whether you're registered or not. You can find out, I can give you the link to register. Our very first day, our 2 social behavioral scientists talking about social behavioral science at CROI. It's a little bit strategic, and they will also be noting the things that they're not seeing at CROI. So please join that conversation, elevate it, and help amplify the importance of this. That's all I'll say. Thanks.
I'm coming over here so you guys can hear me finger snap that because it's important. And the margarita or the community breakfast clubs, no more margaritas. The community breakfast clubs are amazing, and I strongly encourage you all to sign up and come.
Yes, so mine is just a quick one. I think I heard Dr. Dove mentioning something like I think it's protection for partner protection package for ATI participants. Something. Yes. So I think what I wanted to mention here is that the fact that it's like it's so designed for protection of one partner. Please take into account that we live in a free world, and most of us we have multiple partners. So I think let's also take that into consideration. Otherwise, we'll be missing the point.
Dr. Karin, a quick one from Supercharger. Can you please spend a minute to explain more about this May meeting about ATIs and possibly the criteria for attending this important ATI meeting? Thank you.
Thank you, and you can stay here because you're part of it. So the May 20, maybe, do we have anyone from the planning committee on Zoom?
Right.
Michael is also there. Dr. Kustudang is part of the planning committee. Tumin Dugu, the folks from the U.S. military HIV research program. I think the meeting is planned by Steve Deeks, Lady Trotman, Don Kobe, Trevor Crowell, and so on. So how community can be part? That's a really great question, because in the 2018 meeting, there were community members at the meeting, but that was the first time they did an ATI meeting, but there was not engagement prior or leading to the meeting. In this iteration of the meeting, 2024, there will be community sessions in 3 different regions at different time zones. There will be 2 per region, so 6 sessions total leading to the May meeting where community members can be engaged. And anyone who would like to be part of these sessions, we've been doing active outreach to get potential names of participants, but feel free to reach out to either Moses, myself, or Michael. And we were looking for as many community members to participate in these discussions, these interactive webinars in early April. There will be one for the Americas that will correspond to the time zones in the Americas, one for Europe and Africa, and one for Australia and Asia. So these will be the first 2 weeks of April, and then the findings from these interactive discussions will be taken to the May meeting in Nairobi, Kenya. And there are 4 groups, 4 working groups. One is eligibility for ATI trials. I believe that is led by Dr. Steve Deeks. No, that is led by Dr. Steve Deeks, yes. Monitoring, so anything to do with monitoring, restart, is group number 2. That is led by Don Colby from the U.S. military research program. There's group 3, psychosocial, led by Dr. Krista Dong. And then there's group 4, pediatrics, that was just recently added. That is led by Mark Cotton and Philip Golder, if I'm not mistaken. Anything else?
And because of the problems of gadgets and internet connection, I'm advocating for an in-person pre-meeting in Africa for folks to come and converge and learn about the subject so that they can raise concerns and issues and contribution towards this project. Because, you know, in Africa, the issue of internet, the issue of laptops and phones, you might find a very vibrant advocate, but without a phone and without a laptop. And when you say it's a virtual meeting, you will be out of it. So right now I'm advocating for an in-person meeting, pre-African meeting for those folks. Thank you.
What is the date of the meeting?
2024 Analytical Treatment Interruption, or ATI, consensus meeting or workshop.
How do we find that on the internet?
I don't know if it's posted on the internet.
Okay.
But there will be 3 interactive webinars in early April, and please feel free to contact either Moses, Michael Luella, or myself. Happy to give you our contact. Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Dubé? Michael, do you have any in TV land?
Yes, we had one, and let me go back for it. It was interesting because it was talking about HIV criminalization, and they were wondering about HIV criminalization and how that relates to these discussions about participating in trials. And does that actually help? Does that come up in the informed consent process so people can make an informed decision about participating in research?
So the question was about criminalization and how they play into people signing up for clinical trials.
With an ATI.
I'm sorry, and specifically an ATI. I think either all of you could have a little input on that, I think maybe.
Thank you. This was discussed extensively during the Partner Protection Working Group discussions. Bill Freshwater led a lot of activity around this. And at the moment, the legal risks of criminalization are not spelled out in informed consent forms. That is my understanding. In the US, this is more of an issue. Ready, Jim? Want to tag it on?
Just a quick point, in the Australian context, it's not legal framework, it's illegal to knowingly infect someone with HIV. So I think if someone's going into a trial and our consent process goes through risks and closely monitored, I think we walk ourselves out of the legal implications, because you won't be knowingly infecting someone, because as part of a trial, we'll be closely monitoring the viral load and starting you on reset criteria. So, but that's a really good point. It's not worded in our consent process or really thought about. So it's a really thought-provoking question. Thank you to whoever in the audience put that up.
Definitely thank you to whoever it was that asked that question. It is something that needs to be addressed. And I think it's something that could be built into, as we're looking at building up community involvement from the very beginning. This is one of those things that can be integrated into that. Any questions, Michael?
No, that was it.
Perfect.
Except people want the slides. People want the slides.
Oh, people want the slides. So we will make those available, absolutely. And any other questions in the room? Okay, there's an announcement in the room. We're gonna let them know. So this is about something that's going on if you're here in person. So stand by, guys.
Community reception, community reception at CROI at Rock Bottom Restaurant and Brewery. It's a great place. The 60 Mall, which you've all experienced now, is totally under construction, 5 years. It's just down a little bit from that side. It's tomorrow, Monday night, 5:45, 8:15, complimentary food and drinks. Well, some drinks, right? Sponsored by these organizations. It asks for an RSVP. Almost all the community people in this room have RSVP, except for Mr. Switzerland and Mr. Seattle. They will.
I think you mean tomorrow, Monday, not tomorrow.
Sorry, it's Monday, not tomorrow. Tomorrow, so it asks for an RSVP, you can, but you can't have to worry about it, you can come, but you can also just give me your name, no, I'll write it down. And a big announcement, what you might want to do to my reception. Oh, my breakfast, your community breakfast bar, there's so happening on Wednesday. But what online people can know about that.
Yeah, can you?
Actually, I would request that we save the in-room announcements till the end for the sake of our Zoom audience. Should we close out the meeting for them?
Yeah.
There was one more thing I wanted to answer some of the very important questions that Terry asked about justice. And one of them was elder justice and then getting people, allowing people into the trials at all, which has been an ongoing concern. So this is something Corinne and I and others have been really advocating for. And Corinne has designed a trial to look at exactly this. And we're asking people about their attitudes towards this to get some real, qualitative and quantitative data to get back to the researchers. But rest assured that every time I'm on a committee, I scream if they have a arbitrary age limit of 65 or older, and remind them that every single exclusion has to have a medical rationale for it. Being 65 does not mean you are not perfectly healthy in it, but if there are certain concerns that are age related, those need to be elucidated and not have an arbitrary one. So trust me. And I remind them all the time, every time we talk, that the majority of people who will be eligible for a cure when we start studying this and large scale trials are going to be over 50, over 65, because that's where the demographic is going, the summer tsunami. So trust me, we're making more of this. And then Richard.
I'm just going to add one thing on that. We're trying to track, obviously, cure-related studies for quite a while now. And there's definitely been in the recent, maybe the past 2 years, an increase in the number of studies that no longer have any upper age limit. That's something that's really shifted noticeably. So that's kind of encouraging.
A quick one. My sister raised an issue which I wanted to comment on, but there was no time, and that was fine. But let me raise it right. When we are advocating for African involvement into the ongoing cure research, right now, we are really happy that actually folks are taking up energy to involve us in research. But when we are advocating for our involvement right now, we don't look at our laboratories. We don't look at our, we basically look at the burden. Africa will carry the biggest burden of HIV, isn't it? Like 75% of people with HIV are in my continent. So that is the front reason why we are asking for our involvement. So the next, sorry? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we don't look at our ability over to whether we have the laboratories or whether that can come in the next step. But the biggest burden of people living with HIV are in our continent. That's why we are demanding for involvement into these exercises. The biggest challenge we are having with ART right now in Africa, people are not taking ARTs correctly. People are experiencing resistance because we are never given a chance during the initial research to discover these products in 1980s and 1990s. So these products were just dumped in Africa and we didn't know how to use them. For instance, I was put on a product in 1989. That drug had to be kept in a fridge. I didn't have a fridge and my area didn't have electricity. But the research of that product was done in America where there are refrigerators and where there are electricity. But that product was brought in 1989. I'm sorry, I can't even name its name. It was called Calyptra. And I had to use it. And in the whole village, we didn't have a fridge in the whole community. But because during the research, I was not involved to raise that concern that the product you are planning to bring will not help me because I don't have a refrigerator. And so we need to involve Africa and we need to find our ways to advocate for better laboratories, training of expatriates into the cures. I thank you so much.
Are there any more questions? Any more? Michael?
Nope.
If not, I think we'll close it out. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Richard, especially for doing this, and all of you for attending, both online and all ships at sea. Michael has one more thing.
I just want to say something about Moses. Moses, supercharger. I don't know if I have the story right, but this is an amazing man who really deserves recognition. I believe it was during COVID. You were delivering some food to some needy people because everything was a mess and you were hit by a car, a hit and run?
Yep. I was hit by a car and
they left.
and I was admitted for 2 weeks. Thanks for the global advocates. People included all the news. Get me out of the hospital. One of them was Jim Piquet and special thanks. My number one. Jim Pickett and Mike McKeown. Mike McKeown heads the HIV front of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He's a very close friend of mine. And all advocates all over the world who set up a GoFund to cater for my bills. Otherwise, I was going to they were asking for 10 million Uganda shillings. and I didn't have even one. But that GoFund is called GoFund. GoFund. Through friends like Jim Pickett, mind you, Chatan God of Ava, they raised all the money within 24 hours.
He's delivering food to people in COVID that didn't have food.
No, there was, you call it what? COVID lockdown. And nobody was supposed to move. You couldn't move to pick medication. You couldn't move to pick drugs. So as a celebrity, I went to the authorities and I raised this concern of antiretroviral therapy, people accessing antiretroviral therapy, and people actually getting food. So I was given a special permission from the government to do what? To go and access those services and take them to people. So I organized folks. We could do what? We could go and pick the food, take to the people who need it. We could pick the medication and take them. But in that process, when we were distributing food, accidentally, the police was chasing somebody, a criminal, who was really driving so fast. So he lost control and his car found us where we were standing distributing food and it hit me so bad. And that was the story. But I thank God and I thank you, the supporters who supported me to go through that condition for 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. If you haven't seen any of these videos where he's twerking, dancing and singing and doing all kinds of stuff, and then almost take your meds on adherence and everything, amazing. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I didn't get that.
So for you guys at home who missed all of that, they were congratulating and applauding, giving flowers to Moses, who was taking food and medications to folks during the COVID lockdown and was hit by a car, which thankfully he survived. And so give flowers where flowers are due, right? So a round of applause, virtual applause, you guys can get one too. Are we closing out? Oh, well, it's time to go. So thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking with it. To folks at home, thank you for all of the questions that you put in the chat. Really thought-provoking questions. Hopefully, we'll all come back and do this again next year. And in the meantime, be well and be blessed.